what you do with your buyers. You have and your sellers. You have consultations. Talk to them. Build a relationship. Ask them questions. Ask them. One of my questions I get all the time is, how fast can you get their credit scores up? The real answer is 3 to 5 days. But I'll be buying accounts and making them pay for it after I mark it up to add them as an authorized user. And ethically, I refuse to do it. And the reason is, once they have that information and it's listed on their report, yeah, their score is going to shoot up. But because of the fact that it's not theirs and they don't know the person, if they apply for a home loan, then they're actually committing fraud.
Oh.
You want to give your client a felony because you picked the wrong credit repair company. That's a big no-no for me. But literally at that conference, there were 3 different companies that had tables that all they did was sell accounts to people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the New Agent Jumpstart podcast. Today I have a special guest with me. It's Deryk Faber. He does credit repair. Well, I guess tell them a little bit about you, Deryk.
Man, so I do credit repair and really the education part. That's why we put the education in front of the repair in our logo. But I got started in this, and it's been almost 5 years ago. It started really just as a add-on because I was doing business advising for my Amazon business. And then when we sold that business, I thought I'd be able to sit back and live off that for a while. And my wife was like, no, you are getting out of the house. You're going to drive me crazy. So we did some market research and realized that supply and demand in really the state of Kansas was super high demand and nobody was really doing it. Or there's a few people, but they weren't doing a great job. So especially at the marketing side. So I just started jumping out there, getting my name out there, and it's been great ever since. I love getting in front of people and seeing their dreams come to reality. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we've been friends for quite a while. All I know of you doing is credit repair and everything. And I honestly didn't understand, even from an agent standpoint, like how important that industry is. But you've been able to really help some amazing people get into home ownership just because of what you do for them. So how long you've been doing this? You said 5 years, but what got you into this? I mean, why credit repair?
So it's funny because I think that a lot of times, especially when you graduate high school, the first thing is like, I want to do this. I'm going to take over the world and this is what's going to happen. But in reality, every step along the way kind of sets you up for where you're at. And whether like I started off throwing cases of Coke while I was going through college, and then after that, after graduation, I worked at Fastenal and did industrial sales and had some international clients. But each step of the process, your work ethic changes, your focus, and they really want to trigger you on different sales tactics and stuff like that. And then I was a general contractor for 5 years, and then I ran a freight brokerage for a while. And so each step of that led me to the fact that I was like, I've known my whole life I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I didn't want to have a boss. I just didn't know what I was going to do. It was like, give me a product, figure out something, and I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
But then the knowledge that you gain along that led me to Amazon. And I hit 6 figures in sales in my 9th month. And the people I bought my training from kept track of all of our stats and asked me to be a coach. And I went from coaching nobody to, in the 3rd month, they had given me, I had clients in every of the 50 states, but most of them were in the UK and across and overseas, which was really crazy. But all of them spent all their money on training, and some of them had very little money to left on product, and no one had anything for marketing.
Yeah.
So it was all sweat equity, and then I had to get creative on how we're going to pay for advertising. And I quickly learned that none of them either had 0 credit, especially internationally, because they don't have a U.S. credit score, and those that were in the U.S. had really crap credit. So that's where it came into, all right, this is just going to be a side hustle. I'm going to teach people how I did it. And that all stemmed from a divorce and failed marriage and bankruptcy and had a foreclosure and all that fun stuff. So
been there, done that. Got the T-shirt as well.
Yeah, not going back ever again. But at that time, you're going through hell and you're sitting there going, man, why? You know, what am I? I know I made some mistakes, but it's like I'm at the bottom. What's going to happen? And the bankruptcy was first, or no, the foreclosure was first, and the bankruptcy. And this is all just as I was going through the divorce, and it's like all three things all at one time, and you're sitting there going, man, this is rough. But then you turn it into a business, and
Isn't it funny how, because I have kind of the same situation that happened to me in the housing crash of '08. I mean, I lost over $10 million in real estate. I was young, dumb, stupid, whatever you want to say. I was 27. Probably shouldn't have had that much real estate as it was anyway, but everybody was buying a bunch, and, we couldn't do any wrong back then before the crash. And, I remember when it crashed, I mean, I foreclosed on 70 some properties. It was insane looking back and going through that journey. And, I lost my job, lost my marriage at the time, all the same, like 3 month span. And it's like, you're at your all time low. And then how in the hell am I going to get out of this? But then looking back now, I've been married 14 years to Ashton, and we got 3 beautiful kids. I've helped a ton of clients, avoid the situation that I got in for, in real estate and foreclosures and all that. And it's like God had a plan the whole time.
Oh,
right?
100%. And you don't know what it is. It's
No, you don't know. But looking back, it's so obvious why I went through that.
But through the process, you're questioning God, like, why?
I know.
Like, what am I going through? Like, what is your plan for this? And, do you really care about me? And then, like, that moment really hit me because right after the divorce, I had to move into my parents' basement. I'm sitting here in my, like, just before 30, like 20, 28, 29, living with mom and dad again. And you're sitting there going, man, this sucks. This is not what I envisioned when I was graduating high school and trying to get a college degree. And it took me 11 years to get a 4-year degree. And I still got the student loans to prove that too. It's like, man, everything about that process. But you got to go through that stuff to really, I mean, it was one of the first things they tell you when you are an entrepreneur is know your why.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I lived my why, and I'm not going back there. And then you look at your kids and your wife, and you're like, yeah, I'm not going through divorce again. I'm not doing that to my kids.
Isn't it funny how, like when you hear trainers say, understand your why, it's always like that positive. We got to go to the positive. For some people, it's money and success and all that kind of stuff, and it's your why. And to me, I'm like you. The negative has always driven me. It's like, I'm going to show you, right? I'm never going to, I'm going to be better. And it's always been a negative why of what I don't want. So I've always struggled with finding my true why. But then I heard the other day, Dan Martell, he's a guy I follow. He says, if you don't know what you want, tell me what you don't want. And it's just the opposite.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And so I thought that was pretty powerful.
Well, then I like you going through all that stuff. And the one thing that always like just stuck out of my mind was no matter what you're going through in life, that will define you if you let it. But your reaction to it's what's truly going to define you and how you're going to rise from it. And that's what I love about it. It's like, yeah, you can kick me down all you want, but that's not going to define me. I'm going to show you that you're wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're talking about credit repair and everything. Obviously, this is New Agent Jumpstart. We're focused to helping brand new agents get started in their career, or if they're a seasoned agent, getting to that $100,000 a year mark. That's really our focus, right? So let's say you're working with a newer agent, just got into the industry. Tell me some of the basics about credit repair, why it's important to their real estate transaction, why they should even reach out to team up with somebody like you.
Well, especially at the beginning, you're hustling. You're working your tail off for that one person to say, yes, I want to sign on the line. I want you to represent me. You work that hard for those people, then let's keep them is the way I look at it. And you're building a team. You want to have good insurance agents. You want to have good lenders. You want to put your name next to people that you can trust. They're going to be working and care as much about your business as you do. And what we love is not just the transaction where we want to get your clients into their house and then it's over. It's okay. Well, maybe you don't need me. Maybe they can squeak by into the 620s or 640 range and they can get into the house that they want because they need to be in that house. But then plug us in afterwards, because then you're the rock star that when they want to buy their next house in 5 years, then they can know that their credit's in the 700 or 800s, and it's not even it's like, okay, well, what do you want? Not what can you qualify for? So I look at us as part of each agent's team, and I try to make sure that every client knows that, hey, I'm part of their team, and with your permission, we're going to give them updates along the way, because it's important for the agent to know, hey, I think we're 3 or 4 months out, because when we hit that 2 month, all right, then you guys have a good talking point to sit down and talk and find out exactly where their dreams are, where their goals are, what is their list when you sit them down for that house, for that consultation of what can we start looking for and putting that together.
Yeah.
Because then you can start feeding them some of those houses. And it's not like, the hardest part for me is I've got to sit there and say, listen, you've got to forgive yourself for the past X number of years of decisions you've made, because your credit score is nothing but a risk factor that's allowing the lender to know, hey, how big of a risk is this person?
Yeah.
So we're taking all your past history and your past habits, and we're trying to change them. Well, I've got to stay keeping them motivated, and I've got to keep this dream in front of them. And if I've got an agent that is working with me, that's setting them houses, or, hey, this is a house that's not going to be there in 3 to 6 or 9 months when you're done. But if you're always looking at it, if we're always keeping that house then you're not going to go buy a car. You're not going to go spend money. You're not going to be late on a payment. You're going to stay focused on that goal, and that's going to get you in that closing. That's what we all want.
Absolutely. So I know when I first got started, and even throughout the majority of my career, I mean, I just never really focused on helping my clients improve credit scores or anything like that. And honestly, I always saw that kind of as the lender's job. And I know a lot of times lenders team up with people in your industry to improve credit scores. But what can I do as the real estate agent to help my clients get their scores up, to better, I guess, prepare them for to be in a better position for a home loan?
I mean, the biggest thing is pay your bills on time. I like to consider myself, I don't know, old, but seasoned, as the way I like to say it. My wife just says I'm old, but born in 1980. By the time I started paying my own bills in the late 90s, you're writing a check for everything. You're keeping a check register. You're making sure that you have enough money in the checking account before you write checks, and it's not, you're writing down on a calendar when things are due. But now everything can be on your phone. I mean, you can auto pay things. You can set reminders to pay things. So the biggest thing is pay your bills on time, even if it's the minimum payment. Now, granted, I want you to be out of debt. I'm pro credit but anti-debt, but everyone's situation is different. At least set up the minimum payment to be auto paid by your bank, so that you don't even have to worry about whether you're going to have a late payment. It's always paid. And then after it's been paid once, you can go make an extra payment. They're not going to penalize you for it.
Yeah.
Just go in and pay it all the way down as you can afford, but always make your payments on time. That's the first thing that I would make sure that every client is doing.
Gotcha. And something you just said, you're pro credit but anti-debt.
Yeah.
Don't you have to have debt to get credit?
You have to use credit to have credit.
Okay.
You don't have to have debt to have credit.
So explain how that works.
So in order for the way that credit works is the people that are giving you money are reporting to the credit bureaus, the credit agencies, what your history with them is. And then they put that into a big math logarithm, and that spits out a score. The more information you give them, the more of a picture that they can paint. So the more positive information, the higher the score. The more negative information, the negative the score.
Okay.
So if you just go into debt and you make your minimum payment, they like it, but you're not showing them that you can manage your money well. You're showing them that you can make your payments on time, and that's just 35% of your score. You want to show them that you can not only use the debt and manage the debt and make the payments on time, but you don't stay in debt all the time. And so we want to use credit I use credit for everything, and then I pay it off on a regular basis, so that I'm showing them that not only do I use it, but I also pay it off, and I'm responsible that to the point where it's not a big fear that if you've got $100,000 sitting there in available credit, that you're just going to go max it out, and now you're a high risk to them. If you use $40,000-$50,000 in a 2 or 3 month period, but you pay it off, you're going to be pretty attractive to them. But if you put $40,000-$50,000 on a credit account, and then it takes you 5 years to pay it off, now you've overextenuated yourself, and they're not sure if they're ready to invest in you.
Gotcha. So is the goal to pay, like credit cards, is it to pay it in full every month and be completely out?
So The technical answer is you want to pay it on the statement date, and that's different for every account. You want to make sure it's paid in full by the statement date. A lot of social media is going to say pay it at least 30%. The reason that 30% is a magical number is because that's a manageable number for most people.
Okay.
It's not to optimize your credit score. That's just because you're not maxed out, you're less than 50%, and it's not hurting you as much. I like the sweet pocket that FICO says is between 1% and 3% utilization.
1% and 3%.
So and that's total credit, not per account. I mean, you can do per account because then that's still total credit. But
So if I have a card that's got $1,000 credit limit on there, I don't want any more than
$10 to $30,
$10 to $30.
and that's by the statement date.
Yeah.
But
so how do I find the statement date?
It's on each statement. So there's multiple dates. There's normally a period where it says the statement begins, the statement ends, and then the due date.
Okay.
So that's the date that the statement ends is the one you want to find, and you want to make that payment typically about 2 days before because you want them to receive it, and it's going to show as pending for a day or two, and you want it to actually post. That way that balance is actually down.
So I want to know when my statement date begins, when it ends for that month.
Yeah.
And then I want to make that payment right before 2 to 3 days before that. Just
Right.
So okay.
And in reality, when does your credit score matter? When you need it.
When I need it, yeah.
Right.
When I go to buy a car or buy a house
so
or
if
something
that
like
1
that.
to 3% window is to optimize your score, but you're not going to buy a car, you're not going to buy a house, then just pay it all the way off. Like 0 is great. That 1 to 3 is a little bit better, but why leave a balance if you don't have to?
Yeah.
But when you say, I think we're going to be in the market for a house, then start leaving that 1 to 3, and you can leave it there for 2 or 3 months just to that way during the window when they're pulling your credit and then leave it that way through closing. And after you sign the papers, then pay it back down again. But up until that point, I pay mine off on a regular basis. I don't leave any balances.
Okay. So really, I don't need to be as, I guess, concerned about it as concerned, unless I'm getting probably 3 to 6 months out of when I plan to use it, and then get really serious.
Then make those tweaks, keep it down that one. And so what it boils down to is you don't need to do any math. Just write the check for what your balance is and be done with it. But then once you actually have the intent of opening an account and getting new credit, then you want to be more specific, do the math on what that 1 to 3% window is, pay it down to that, and then leave it there.
See, I've always heard of that 30% too.
Yeah.
That's crazy how it doesn't really have. I mean, there's no real research or anything behind it. And, I mean, I've never heard of 1 to 3%.
It's all psychological. I mean, and it's easy depending on the client. I normally just say 5% because it's close enough to that 1 to 3 that it's not bad. But you can take 10% and divide it by 2, and anybody doesn't. Most people don't need to get a calculator out for that.
Yeah,
1 to 3%, you're pulling out a calculator trying to figure out what it's supposed to be.
I could do 3% of every number.
Well, good. Then you don't need a calculator.
In real estate, I can do 3%.
Yeah, you know that really well.
Yep, absolutely. So I know part of getting a good score is not having negative or inaccurate information on your credit reports.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that I can do if I need to dispute inaccuracies, or what's the process look like to even go about doing something like that?
Well, I mean, the first thing you really need to do is look at your credit reports. It's amazing how many times people have no idea even what's on there. So annualcreditreport.com is where you start. You need to pull and that's not going to give you a score. It's just going to give you your extra report so you know exactly what's on your report.
Annualcreditreport.com?
Yeah. You get one for every 12 months. During COVID, you can get one every month, but it's back to once a year.
Okay.
So start there, see what's on there.
Now, do you pull all 3 of them?
Yeah, they will send you all 3 when you go through them, and they'll mail them to you. Or if you go onto their website, you'll verify your information, then they'll pull one up, and when you're done, that's the last time you're going to see it for 12 months. So make sure you save it, and you're done with that one. Then they'll pull up the next one. You just do all 3 of them one at a time. But if you have it shipped or mailed to you, then you'll get all of them at one time and from them. So
okay, so we get that, and then what?
Then you go through line by line, make sure you understand what's on there, make sure that you agree with what's on there. The way that credit is done is just because it's on your credit report means that's it. That's legally all they have to do is those credit reporting agencies literally do just that. They report the information they're given. They don't verify it. They don't validate it. They don't make sure anything. That's what they're being given. It's your responsibility to make sure that it's accurate. So that's when the dispute process goes. And that's what makes it a challenge is People don't realize, and I try to tell everyone in that initial consultation, everything I do, you can do yourself. You don't have to pay me a dime. Just go do it. But they also know that because those credit reporting agencies, they get paid on the amount of information they provide. So if you say this is wrong, take it off. They're not going to say, okay, thank you, Mr. Callison. We'll make sure to remove that. They say, are you sure? And then, or one of my favorite stall letters is the first one they normally send is we congratulate you on being diligent and trying to work on your credit. However, it appears that this is a mass mailing that's been sent out. Is this truly what you want? And they do that because...
So they pretend like it wasn't you that...
Yeah. Or they say it was a credit repair company that's working for you, and they word it in a way where it appears that it's not legal to use a credit repair company.
Oh.
And it 100% is. And they do that to scare you into just canceling a credit repair company working for you.
Interesting.
Because that just, again, the more roadblocks they put up, the better chance you're going to give up and quit, and the more money they're going to make. So they want to make sure that everything that they do is maximizing their profits, and that's to keep that information on there.
So they don't want to delete any information off there because
they want to make as much money as they can. So if they remove something, they're hoping you're adding something. So that's why a part of our process is not just disputing things to remove. We're also going through your credit profile, getting a good credit mix, having you add different accounts as well as manage your debt.
How often do you said on especially the first letter they act like it's not you or you're using a credit or a credit repair company? How long does that game play out before you start?
It's a game. It can take. I mean, I tell people to give me on average 9 to 11 months, and that's because we get the account created, get all the documents we need, write the letters, get those out. We got to allow 3 working days for them to receive them. Then they've got to process them. And then the clock starts where they've got 30 days to do the investigation and respond. So we tell clients typically it's 45 days in between rounds of letters that we do. Well, that 2 rounds is now we're at 3 months. So that's 6 months to get to 9, or 6 rounds to get to 9 months. But if you get a response, send it to me right away, and then we react right away, and that helps shorten that window down because we can counter each one of their responses because they dance on the law. It's funny. I never thought I mean, I've been intrigued by the law, but I had no desire to go to law school. But I've got law books on my bookshelf that I go through on a regular basis because if they're breaking the law, it has to come out. So you've got to dance around their wording and exactly what they're doing. And if you can find a breach of the law, then you cite the law, highlight the law, send it with the next letter, and say you just validated this. Either we're going to sue you, you remove it. So it's a dancing game, and they're counting on the fact that if you do it yourself, which again you totally can, that 1, you don't know how to respond. 2, you're going to give up, and if you don't give up, they're going to just drown you with enough paperwork. You're just going to throw your hands up in the air and say, I don't know what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
So
you said realistically, I should probably, if I'm looking to improve my credit score over time, 9 to 11 months.
That's to remove the negative items.
And to remove the negative item.
Your score can shoot up in the first 30 days if you do the homework that I give you. And that's the credit building portion. And that's opening new accounts if needed or paying down balances if there's some, and then just staying within the guidelines of what we tell you to do. Gotcha.
Okay, so you're putting a plan of action together, not only just to remove negative stuff, but also do things to improve the score as well.
Yeah. And most, I don't anymore. I don't know the numbers because a lot of credit repair companies are starting to do that. But there's way more bad apples in my industry than good ones, and so there's credit repair companies that all they do is write letters to all 3 credit bureaus, and that's it. There's credit repair companies that they may, and I don't know their exact methodology, but they may charge you for that, and then they don't always even mail them off because how are you going to prove it? I try to be as transparent as possible. We dispute to the 3 credit reporting agencies, but to me, that's like the bare minimum. If you're doing that, yeah, you're doing what you said. But we're also coaching on credit. We're also telling you what to do. Even spouses are going to have 2 separate plans because you've got 2 separate credit reports with different things on it. If you're an authorized user under your spouse, that's not going to be the exact same as if you had your own account. It's affecting your credit, but we want to add more weight. We want to show them that you're the one making those financial decisions that's going to impact your score and how it's going to build But then also, what we go a step above is we write letters to the people that you owe money as well, and we try to catch them into the incorrect letters being responded back and how they're doing it, so we can get it removed from the source as well as from the agency that's reporting it. The agency is the one that's giving you your score, but the people that are furnishing that data is also who are attacking as well. Because if we can get them to mess up, then it has to change at the source.
So it's better probably to attack it at the source in this instance.
Sometimes, because each one of them's different. Like, it's funny, Capital One is really notorious for, if you dispute even a one late payment and you say, this is not accurate, I thought I made this on time, or can you prove it? They just say that it's a fraud account. Well, I'm not claiming fraud. You're the one that's using that word. And then if they attach that to your account, then now it's a fight to get it removed from your account. So every different person that gives you credit, we kind of attack differently, and that's just based off of our years of.
So Capital One is playing the game that if you dispute anything, then they're just going to automatically mark it as a fraud.
They just assume that everything in their system is 100% accurate at all times, and if you dispute it, you're claiming that you didn't do that, and it's fraud because they're right, and you're saying that they're wrong. So then they just flag it that way.
So how is that even legal?
They've got a lot more lawyers than I do, so it's all about who's got the biggest paycheck or cash or check they can cash.
Yeah.
They take it to the bank that you're going to give up. So
they're really banking that you will just wash your hands and
I'm just
a
very small fish in the pond. But if you're trying to do that on your own, imagine the fight you're going to have trying to go up against Capital One. Because if all of a sudden you get a letter saying that you just claimed it's fraud, even though that's nowhere in your wording, if you didn't save that letter, how are you going to prove that you didn't claim fraud when they're saying here's a response that you claim fraud? So it truly, everything you do, everything you document needs to be building up a legal case, and don't say you're going to sue them without you talking to an attorney with the intent to sue. It's another bad tactic that credit repair companies do, is we're just going to threaten them with a lawsuit. They get threatened with that all. They don't bite an eye at that. They've got a full legal team on staff to deal with that. If you're going to threaten them with a lawsuit, you better be prepared to sue, and you better have everything in order that you're going to win that suit. Otherwise, you don't threaten it.
So speaking of the bureaus and how they basically they're the ones that have all the information to basically make up your score. Are there any quick fixes somebody can do in order to boost their score really quick in order to get into a house in the next 2 to 3 months?
There are, but it really depends where you're at. Because everybody's score is different, and they don't release their math formula for figuring all that out. So we've got to break down exactly what's on there, see how close you are, see what negative things are on there to see what we can do. A lot of times, if it's a quick fix or something that can be done in a short period of time, it's because you absolutely have no credit and we just opened some accounts. But you got to be very strategic on that, because the first thing a lender is going to say is don't apply for anything until closing.
Yeah.
So you don't want to.
I've told a lot of clients that, I'll have a buyer consultation.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I talk about in that buyer consultation is you're not going to do anything with credit. You're not going to buy a new refrigerator on credit to go put in your house. I don't even want them buying a refrigerator to put in the house until after we close on it, because the lender might need that cash from their bank account as reserves.
Yeah.
And so, I've had a couple deals fall apart early in my career because people went and utilized credit. They went and bought a new car for their new garage, right? And it's so much easier, I think, to buy the car after buying the house, right?
The way that you're supposed to do it is you buy it from the biggest expense to the smallest expense. So unless you're buying a plane, you need to buy your house first. And then after the house is the car, then the furniture, and then you go down the list as far as what the biggest expenses are. So if you need to buy anything, and I've had people say, man, my car just broke down. Well, can it be repaired? Can they do in-house financing that's not going to show up on your credit report? There's many different things that can be done, but when it comes down to it, even if I say you need to open some credit accounts, some credit cards, we're going to probably start, because your credit sucks, at a secured card. We're going to put $200 or $300 on there, and they're going to recycle some existing bills, like your cell phone bill, your electric bill, something that you're already paying anyway, so we're not creating a bunch of new debt. We're just going to put that on the credit card, and then we're going to have your bank auto pay that 2 or 3 days later, and you're not going to put that in your wallet, because we don't want to risk you using it when you shouldn't be.
Okay, so instead of paying my phone bill through a debit card out of my bank, I'm just transferring that to maybe a new secured card?
Yep.
And
And that's
then
all you use it for, nothing else.
and then that just gets paid off. You use your bank to pay off the secured card.
You can set up that credit card to pay that bill on time every time automatically without you doing a thing. It just knows what the due date is and you pay it in full. And then you set up your checking account because that's like most people's credit or most people's cell phone is going to be within a few pennies of itself every month, depending on taxes. So if it's $327.92 one month and put that plus an extra 5 cents or less, a few 5 cents, and then you have your checking account pay that credit card 3 to 5 days later for that exact dollar amount.
Okay.
On automatic, because the money's already in your account anywhere. You've been paying it on time every month, but now we're putting it on the credit card, and now your bank's paying that credit card off a few days later.
So really, we're not doing anything different except for just where does the money go first?
Right.
And it's to the credit
You're
card.
adding one step to the process to build your credit along the way without going into debt at all, and you're not taking it with you, so you're not tempted to buy shoes or do something that you. I mean, what we learned during COVID, we can't plan the future.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you don't put food on the table, but make all your payments on time. But just understand that if you don't make your payments on time, how it's going to affect your future.
Absolutely.
But as we've adjusted with technology, you can pay utility bills with credit cards now, and you didn't used to be able to do that. You can find those bills, and I want it to be at least $100 a month. So put at least $100 a month on it, but do it in a way that you can seamlessly do it with bills you're automatically paying. And if you feel you can handle it, again, you know you better than I do. But if you feel you can handle it, then swipe it for putting gas in your car once every other week. Because again, we're not creating new bills, but the temptation is there because it's in your wallet that it's not on auto pay, but at least you're building credit along the way.
Okay, so we can literally just take our day-to-day living expenses and put them on a credit card. How many credit cards should we probably look at having to really optimize our score?
So that's where it comes down to where you're at and where your goals are.
Okay.
So I know you've got 3 kids, and I know that their future is very important to both of you.
Yep.
So you need to each have at least 3 cards so that when they turn 18, you can add them as an authorized user, and you're giving them 10 years, 15 years worth of positive payment history, on-time payments, and low utilization that's automatically going to hit their credit, and you're going to teach them how to use the cards.
Okay.
So that's what I would start with you guys with. For somebody who's wanting to buy a home, I require, as part of my initial consultation, I want them to have 2 credit cards. We just added, because I went to a conference and they said that department store cards are actually starting to get weighed a lot more. So I want 2 credit cards, 1 department store card, and 1 revolving or 1 installment account.
So what department stores am I looking for? Like JCPenney's or what?
Where do you shop? How many people do not shop on Amazon?
I shop. Yeah,
Amazon.
This whole studio was bought off Amazon.
Amazon has a secured card, so if you can't even qualify for their card, you can get their secured card. And now we're not. I don't want to change your habits. I just want to do it smart.
Okay. So an Amazon card and
2 secured cards.
2 secure cards.
Yeah.
Okay, like a Capital One, Discover, or whatever.
Whichever one you want. I don't care. I've got a list that I've already pre-qualified for people that I've got in my wallet, but people care about brands and I don't. So I just want, as long as it reports to all 3 credit bureaus, I'm happy, because ultimately we're talking about buying a house.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get a mid score if you've got 1 or 2 accounts.
So what do you mean if they all report to all 3, or if they report to all 3 credit bureaus? Don't they all?
No. So every time, in a business, every time you do something, it costs you money.
Yeah.
And every time a credit card company reports to 1 bureau, it costs them money. And if they report to all 3, it costs them 3 times as much money. So it depends on the size of the company, what their business plan is. And they can say literally in the contract, we report to the credit agencies, but they don't say which one. So I look for the ones that tell you specifically all 3 of them get reported to. Otherwise, you're just hoping.
Yeah.
Well, we don't, everything, that's part of the coaching. Everything with your finances should be done with intent.
Huh.
And if you don't know what the outcome is, you should not do it, period. If someone's pressuring you to do something, they're doing what's best for them and not for you. So you should walk away from it.
Yeah.
It's just, everything to do with finances. If it's not intentional, don't apply for something if you don't know what the requirements are for acceptance. I mean, I want you to apply knowing you're going to get approved. If you don't know, don't apply.
So what can agents do that are watching this? What can they do? You know, I mean, for one, you Are you available to work with everybody in all 50 states in the United States?
49.
49. Okay.
For some reason, Georgia thinks that, and I'm part of an organization, a national organization of credit repair companies that we're trying to get the law changed. But you either have to be a lawyer or a nonprofit to work in Georgia. Otherwise, it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah, because we know lawyers are
Yeah.
smartest people out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they know everything.
They know everything.
So,
yeah.
But so I turn away work for Georgia, but all the other states I'll work for.
So I'd love them if they would use you and everything, because, I mean, you've helped with quite a few of our clients and everything in the past. But if they don't decide to reach out to you, what can an agent do to make sure that they're actually working with somebody that's reputable and actually it's not a scam, right?
Do what you do with your buyers and your sellers. You have consultations. Talk to them. Build a relationship. Ask them questions. Ask them. One of my questions I get all the time is, how fast can you get their credit scores up? The real answer is 3 to 5 days. But I'll be buying accounts and making them pay for it after I mark it up to add them as an authorized user. And ethically, I refuse to do it. And the reason is, once they have that information and it's listed on their report, yeah, their score is going to shoot up. But because of the fact that it's not theirs and they don't know the person, if they apply for a home loan, then they're actually committing fraud.
Oh.
Do you want to give your client a felony because you picked the wrong credit repair company? That's a big no-no for me. But literally at that conference, there were 3 different companies that had tables that all they did was sell accounts to people.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's not against the law. Because again, all your credit score is a risk factor, a numerical risk factor. So if your score goes up, the credit repair company did their job, you're excited, and everyone's happy until you apply for it, and there's a red flag, and they do research, and you're screwed.
And then they find out you bought.
That you bought it. Because you're misrepresenting yourself. Now, if it's a friend or family member and you can prove that relationship, there's no issues there. But they're shifting the formula on that too, because they don't want... It's supposed to represent you and your spending habits and their risk in investing in you.
Yeah.
And if you're using someone else's, if it's a relationship with them, they're betting on the fact that they're helping educate you on how to keep it that way. But if you're just going out and buying it, it's totally different.
Gotcha.
So that's the first thing I would ask is how fast can you get the scores up, and just listen and gather the information. Then how long have they been in business? Do you have a bond? I mean, there's many different questions that can be asked. What is your process? Do you dispute to all 3? What about the smaller bureaus if needed? Can you get a bankruptcy removed? What's your process for that? Get in depth onto questions that you may have, and then ask them to send you some emails. And how would you treat your client?
Now, you just said something that just jumped out at me. You mentioned smaller bureaus. I thought there was only 3.
There's 3 big ones. There's over 20 smaller ones, and they gather information and sell them to the big 3.
Oh, okay.
It's just like everything. Where there's money to be made, people are going to make money.
So it's just not TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian?
No. There's multiple. The next biggest one is LexisNexis, and they do a lot of that. When I mentioned bankruptcies, that's one thing they like to do is they go through and find public records, gather that information, and sell them as a bankruptcy. The courts don't report bankruptcies. So technically, bankruptcies should never be on your credit report because they're never reported.
Because the courts don't report them.
Yeah.
But they're public record, which is how they get them.
LexisNexis gets them, sells them to the big 3. So, and I just had a client actually this weekend send me a letter because I write the letter to the court system. It's very detailed in how I word it specifically, because I need it worded back a specific way. And they don't always answer the questions that I need them to. So then they get mad at me because I send them the letter again and I can't tell them what to say, but I need them to respond a certain way. And this court actually responded exactly how I want. And I want them to say that they don't report in not so many words. I want them to say, I do not report your bankruptcy to the credit bureaus. And as long as I get that in writing, then I can dispute it with LexisNexis, saying this is not information that was given out. And then once they remove it, I get a copy of that report, and then I can get that to the big 3, and then they have to remove it. Because the way the law is written is they have to validate or verify that information. Well, if that's given to them from LexisNexis, and initially I want them to verify it, LexisNexis is like, yeah, it's good. But if I go and get it removed from LexisNexis and then go to them, now when they go to verify it, there's nothing to verify because it's been removed and it has to come off of theirs.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, there's credit repair companies will charge anywhere from $3,500 to $10,000 to remove a bankruptcy, and I don't charge any different because it can be 2 to 3 year process. Why would I charge you $10,000 for 3 years worth of work that may or may not work? And in all honesty, by the time we get to that 3 year period, it's really not affecting your score that much. So let's teach you how credit works. Let's build your credit up. And oh yeah, if I can get it removed faster, or you really want it off, you're paying the monthly fee, and it's your money. You choose whether you want to continue to pay me or not.
So I know when it comes to like credit scores, I know like credit utilization, like debt to income, all that kind of stuff. It all kind of factors in to building your score. So how do those things really affect you being able to get a mortgage?
So ultimately, talk to the lender because they know what their underwriters are going to look for. How it affects your credit score that's going to make you more appealing is 30% of your score, which is the second highest portion of your score. The biggest is history, which is why I say pay your bills on time.
Okay.
The second is how you use your credit cards, and it's credit cards only. It's a ratio of the amount of credit you've been given and then how you use it each month, which is why we say the statement date, right? So if we pay it by the statement date and it shows that you've paid it all off, that utilization ratio is amazing for you. You're going to get the most amount of points. So it's huge on the fact that it's 165 points out of the 550. So you need to know how you're using it and how to manage it so that when you do talk to the lender, that your score is going to look the most attractive. So when you go through underwriting, you're going to get approved. That's why a lot of lenders don't always call me because they just say, pay your credit cards down, and their system's going to say that your score is going to be high enough for approval.
Gotcha.
And then they don't need me. But in my opinion, everybody needs me, right?
Yeah.
And that's because if you can get approved at a 620 to 640, what if I got you to a 700 or a 680 and you saved a quarter of a percentage point? Well, what's a quarter of a percentage point over 30 years?
Yeah, that's huge.
Or what's a quarter of a percentage point on buying power? And now you can buy a better house or a bigger house or get an extra bedroom. So there's everybody in the industry wants to be the first call. Ultimately, I say talk to your agent first. They're the expert in everything, and they've created that group of people around them that are other experts that make their team and them stronger and their business stronger. So talk to the agent first, let them ask the right questions, and then get their clients full picture on who they need to talk to first. And sometimes I say, yeah, go talk to a lender first. You don't need to talk to me. But if they know they're in the 500s, there's no reason to talk to a lender. We got to get their score into the 600s before you talk to them.
The most interesting things that you said in this whole conversation, how the real estate agent is the expert in everything. That really stuck out to me. I appreciate that.
It's true. Like I tell lenders all the time, I know my lane. If it's a lending question, I don't even want to say I've heard this. Go talk to a lender. It's not my business.
Well, see, and I take the same viewpoint. Like if it's a lending question, it's not my lane, right? I mean, I know some lending issues. I kind of have a good idea of different types of loans and all that kind of stuff. But I don't care to dive into the weeds on that.
It's funny because, we've been doing this now for 5 years. 2 of those years were all online because I was getting all my clients from that business where I was business coaching, and I started helping credit that way as far as charging. I don't count the past 10 years because that was family and friends I didn't charge for. To me, if you're going to charge someone money, you better be an expert at it. So that was me learning and making sure I was an expert. Then the first 2 years was me with the business people trying to get my actual job of their businesses flowing and getting some real cash flow. But then once I started coming into the local market and trying to establish myself as someone who's already an expert, I went to RSCK and I said, hey, how can I start teaching classes? And they stopped me in my tracks and said, you will never teach a class here, which it's on my list. I will be doing, by the way. I just don't know when yet. I just got to find the right time.
RSCK, for everybody that's not aware, that's listening, is Realtors of South Central Kansas.
Right.
It's our local MLS board.
Right. And they said because they don't want me to educate agents to the point where they feel that they're giving bad information, which I can respect, but there's no actual good information being taught to them right now. So why don't we create a class, even with the very basic stuff, that they can choose to have some good information to give clients? So,
and that's exactly why I started New Agent Jumpstart. It's because all the real estate training out there right now is high-level overview, theory type stuff. Mm-hmm. Nothing that you learn to get your license is worth a damn. I mean, it just doesn't teach you how to do the business. And that it doesn't shock me that the local board would not want you in to actually talk about something that we could actually use in our day-to-day businesses to help our clients.
Yeah.
It just doesn't shock me at all. It's sad, but that's exactly why, I'm doing this podcast and doing, the trainings and everything like that, is because this stuff is just not presented to agents.
And it goes back to the conversation we had at the beginning is some people get told no, and then there's us that were like, okay, well, we'll see in a few years.
Yeah.
Like our experience is worth more value than a classroom. And we're willing to take our experiences to the classroom so others don't make the same mistakes, whether they're in your organization or not. We want to help people.
Yeah.
And so when that no was told, I was like, okay, that's on my board of things that it will happen, and I'll just smile the first time I do it, and I'll know in my mind, I'm not going to say anything to them, but I'll know in my mind that, yeah, I knew that you guys need me. You just don't see it yet.
So yeah, that's funny because I refuse. This is probably getting a lot deeper than what we should go, but I refuse to actually take a class from the local board. And I know a lot of agents around the country that they don't get along with their boards either because they just don't feel like they're out for them. I mean, honestly, I feel like the local board is a money sucking entity of something that I don't even need. Right.
I try not to bash like competition. There's some local people, they do things differently than me, and that's fine. That's their business model. And the board is kind of the same way because I was a member or sponsor, whatever they wanted to call me. And every time they communicate with me was not that I was out of cards or handouts for new agents. It was, we've got an event for you to sponsor.
Yep.
And that's all they ever cared about. And the funny thing was I did not renew after 1 year because that's all they wanted to talk to me about. And they refused to let me teach. And I was like, okay, well, if you don't need me, then I don't need you.
Yep.
And the next time they called me was 4 months after I was no longer a member asking me to sponsor something. And I asked them if they checked whether I was active or not. And they said, oh, I'm sorry, and hung up the phone. It's like, well, that said enough for me that you really don't know who even is active and that it's all about paychecks.
So let's get off the local board
Right.
subject because I could get all worked up. You came back from a conference. Where was that? Vegas?
Vegas, yeah.
Vegas.
I hate Vegas. But
I
was
love
there.
Vegas.
Can't stand Vegas.
But okay, you got back from Vegas. Really insightful conference and everything with some stuff that's coming down with FICO in 2025.
Yeah.
Right?
Big changes.
Big changes. Let's talk about some of those big changes. So if you've made it this far in the podcast, this is where you really want to perk your ears up because from what you were telling me before we got on the camera, I mean, this is huge.
It's huge, and no one's talking about it. Even the people that were at the conference, like I've known some people across the country that are in credit repair, and those of us that know ethically we're strong. We bounce ideas off of each other, whether it's marketing or different letters, because with AI, our letters are always changing. You can't use the same form letter that people are like, oh, use this letter and it'll remove all these things. It doesn't work that way. You've got to be changing. And FICO has used, every time they get a new scoring system, they add a number to it. So FICO 1, 2, 3, it's just a new system. Well, FICO 8's been used for autos and credit cards now for years, and it's still going to be used. But FICO 2, 4, and 5 is what's being used in the mortgage industry. And FICO 5 is 20 years old.
Oh.
So 2 and 4 are even older. And so we all know how life changed for, again, back to COVID. How has things changed in the last 2 years for everybody in this country? Well, what has 20 years done?
Yeah.
It's totally different. Just the amount of information that's being reported is different. So they're trying to incorporate your rent. They're trying to incorporate your utilities. They're trying to incorporate all this additional information that can actually help build a profile into their algorithm to spit out a more accurate score. But in doing that, they've got to have buy-in from lenders and everyone else. So they went to Freddie and Fannie and said, all right, we're going to give you better numbers to reduce your risk on these loans that you're going to be buying. What do you think about that? And they said, okay, well, we're going to make it mandatory starting in 2025 that people use this new scoring system.
So Fannie and Freddie got on board first.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of making everybody else.
Whoever writes the checks controls a lot of things. And that's why it's never changes. Every time that Experian, TransUnion, Equifax ever wanted to change their scoring system, it cost them lots of money to change it. So they just never did. That's why it's 20 years old. But now they're being told you have to. They're writing the check and they're doing it. And so it's going to be some pretty big changes. Most of them are with that credit utilization. And they're going from that that statement date is still important because they're still reporting your in balance for the month.
Okay.
But they're also going to start reporting your daily average balance during that month. And they're
Daily average balance?
daily average balance, and they're going to go back 24 months. So now the past 2 years are going to affect your credit score moving forward.
So
Only when buying a house.
So it's no longer just a snapshot of where I'm at today.
They said it's going from a snapshot, which is a still picture, to a 30-second short or a video. They want to give them as much of a picture about you as they possibly can. And in doing that, they're looking at the daily average. They said that the guy from FICO, I actually ate lunch with, me and a buddy of mine from Minnesota. We sat down, we talked with him, and he said, listen, here's the deal. There are people that are in the 700s right now that may wake up in the 500s when it comes to this because of the swing. They'll max out their cards, and they'll pay it off every single month, so they stay in the 700s. But when you incorporate the daily average balance, it's going to tank people's scores, and they're not ready for it.
So when we're talking credit utilization, and earlier we said you want to be 1 to 3%.
Yeah.
So if I have a card, let's say $1,000 card, and I go knowing I'm going to pay it off at the end of the month, and I go and I put $950 on there, and I know at the end of the statement date I'm going to pay that off. That's now going to show as a very high credit utilization because
if you put that $950 in at the beginning of the month and paid it off at the end, you've got 20 days of a 95% utilization. Yeah. Now, if you just put that on 2 days before you paid, it's probably not going to hurt you that much.
Okay.
So again, it's average. So it depends as you gradually increase that balance, how long that balance stays there is how it's going to affect that number. So what am I doing to counter that is I've been doing it now for a while, but every one of my clients, I say, pay this off every week. I do it every Friday. Every Friday, there's an alarm on my phone. I sit down, I go through every single card that I have, pay the balance in full, and then I go back to what I was doing.
Okay, so now I'm not concerned so much about paying it off just once a month at that statement date, like we talked about earlier, right?
There's different concerns now, though, because like I've got a Discover card that only lets me make 6 payments per month. That's why I stick to once a week. Not every time you use it, go pay it off.
Okay.
Because some cards, because again, it's all about dollars, right? So if they, every time they process something, their system is working or somebody's doing something which costs them money. They like money coming in, but they like to do it as efficiently as possible. So if you do it once a week, make sure that that credit card company is not going to max you out because you don't want to pay it off in the first 3 months or first 3 weeks of the month 2 times per week, run out of times you can pay them, and now you use your card in the last week of the month, you've got high utilization, you still screwed yourself.
So it's important to not only pay once a week now, but now I got to make sure that my cards that I get are allowing that many payments a month.
And a lot of times it's communication. If you call, I mean, when stuff's going wrong, the easiest thing people do is ignore the problem. But if things are going right, you don't think there is a problem, so you don't communicate.
Yeah.
But if you call them and say, listen, here's the deal. I've had your card for a few years. I know the way things are changing. I want to start making my payments to you in full every single week. Is that going to be a problem? Will I max out the number of times I can pay you? They're going to tell you yes or no. Some of them can make an adjustment. Some of them say, no, it is what it is. Well, if it's 3 times per month, then do it every 10 days. I mean, you've got to figure out what system works for what cards you have that's going to make sense. But don't cancel the account if it's not what the information you want because you're going to lose your history.
Yeah. So I still want to keep the card.
Yeah.
I just might use that card differently and not accrue too much of a balance.
That's where that card may be your cell phone bill or your electric bill. Even if you're a 750, you can still have one card designated for those auto payments. But if you only use it once a month and you pay it off 3 days later, your daily average balance is going to be awesome. You don't need to worry about making a payment 3 times a month.
Yeah, I guess because all those other days will be 0.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you still let that.
We get in our own heads way too much and make this way harder than it really should be, right? So like one thing when I go talk at high schools and colleges is I hold up my phone to the group and I'm like, do you guys realize that when this thing rings, you have a choice whether you're going to answer it? It's crazy. They're like, what? But it's the same thing with your credit cards. You don't have to use them. You're in control every time. And so you whether it's which one to use or how often you're going to use it or when you're going to pay it, just know what your decision is, how it's going to affect your credit, and then make the decision what's best for your situation. So if you have a card that's either super high interest, like I don't even care what the interest rates are, because even if it's 35%, why do I not care? Because I'm paying it off.
Yeah.
They're going to charge me the interest as I'm using it. Well, if I'm using it a lot but paying it off a lot, I'm not giving them opportunity to charge me high interest.
Gotcha.
So just be smart, understand exactly what all the information is, and then make your decisions based on the information you have, based on your goals and what you want to do with your credit.
So you mentioned the daily average balance thing. That's a big change in 2025. Is there anything else that we need to be looking out for?
Well, especially for realtors, since this is for realtors, I get asked a lot about Credit Karma. And to me, Credit Karma is what Zillow is for you.
Hey, they could be up to 40% off according to their own website.
Well, yeah. But the other changes that I don't talk a lot about is Credit Karma uses Vantage 4 scoring, which is their own scoring system, not FICO.
Okay.
And that is now going to be part of the mortgage lending process. Is they're going to actually take that into account. They haven't said how much. They use 6 factors instead of 5, so everything is going to be totally different that I can't even predict. But I can tell you what I am teaching is the more strict of the two. So if you do what I tell you to on the FICO side, the other one's going to take care of itself, and you're not really going to. It's not going to matter.
Okay.
So that there are some more changes, and Vantage 4 is going to be a part of the process now. But if you worry about the hardest part and you focus on that, the more strict numbers, then the easier ones are automatically going to fill themselves in, and you're not even worried about it.
Going back to earlier, you're able to work in 49 states.
Yeah.
Because Georgia is behind the curve.
Yeah.
So are you able, or I guess if an agent in Florida wanted to reach out to you and team up with you, is that something that you're looking to take on?
I will take on, and if I have to hire people, I will. I mean, I've got a virtual assistant that helps do a lot of the back end type stuff, but I've got a salesperson that's coming on this week and 2 more that I'm interviewing. So it's, as I grow, I'm ready to go. And I've always been big on automation. So for the last 5 years, I've recorded phone calls. I've set up different training. So it's just, we get people in there. They've got the experience. They're off and running. And if things come up, I'm all involved in it. So
cool. So it sounds like you're actually looking to grow and help more people. So how does an agent get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to reach out and start that relationship, or at least start the conversation?
Phone call is always easy. I have no problem giving agents my personal cell phone number. I want to direct them eventually to my CRM, because then that way I can document things, and I can tell my assistant, hey, here, this is in this profile, add it to my calendar, and it's there. Phone calls, I'm really bad at remembering to do that, and then I miss appointments, and then I look like I don't know what I'm doing. So, but 316-214-8554 is my personal cell phone number. It's pretty much everywhere. So,
is there a good email address, anything, or website?
ScarlettArrow.com, and then Deryk at Scarlett Arrow.
Okay.
So I try to make it as simple as possible.
Cool.
Because I need it for my own. To manage myself, I have to make it as simple as possible.
Absolutely. So wrapping up this, give me just some key takeaways that if you want somebody that's in the audience to just walk away with and, man, really get, what do you want to leave them with?
Be intentional with what you do, whether it's with your business or your finances, and especially since your audience is people that are wanting to start their real estate career. Know whether you want to be a transactional or relational agent. There's room for transactional agents out there. That's not the type of business model I have. I'm all about relationships. So, but know what you want to do, and then build your path on how to get there. And investing in yourself is far more valuable. And there's something to be said for sweat equity, but know what your time is worth, and surround yourself with people smarter than you, so you can hand it off to them and know that they're going to hand it back to you when the time's right. Absolutely.
And I love how you touched on the relationship part, because I mean, people that know my story, as I was very transactional. That's how I was taught, because the team that I was with provided all the leads, and my only job was just to work the leads. Right. And so for the first 4 years of my career, I was very transactional, and then I learned a better way. And then it's all about building the relationship and seeing how you can help people, not just in real estate, but just in life in general, and just being a human being. And so that's one of the things that really, excites me about working with somebody like you is, I've seen you in action, and it's literally you come in and you sit down and it's educational. I mean, even when somebody gets into your program, I mean, the amount of just emails that you send out that's just education based. is amazing. And so it's not just, hey, I'm going to fix your credit real quick and we're going to be done. I'm moving on. You know, you're there as long as they need, and you're also walking people through and answering questions, you know, on a regular basis. And that's one thing that has really, you know, when I started this podcast, you were one of the first people that I thought of bringing on, just because of the way you do business. And so I really appreciate the time that you took out of your day to even join me on this, get the word out. Hopefully people understand that, you know, coming up in 2025, it's going to be a different world, just
totally.
because of the way the credit bureaus are wanting to do business, you know, and if you're not adapting to the change, you're falling behind, and you'll eventually just be left behind.
Well, and as your audience, like, you're building a foundation, whether you've been in real estate for 5 days or 5 years or 5 decades. If you're at the point where you're trying to push over that 6-figure mark for the year, you're got to think of why you're in real estate. Most people, I imagine, are in real estate because they want to be their own boss. They want to be in control of their own schedule. They want to have family time. They want to make good money, and they want to help people.
Yeah.
And if those are the things that you're passionate about, think of why you don't want to be in a job, why you don't want to work for someone else. If you're transactional, you're going to take the emotion out of it, and your passion's going to slowly leave out over time. If you're relational and you're truly going to care about each client, 3 to 5 years ago, after you've already sold a house, you're getting an invitation to a high school graduation because you're part of their family. You're part of that new school district. You're part of all the things that have led to their family being where they're at, and you're keeping in touch with them. And that's the kind of stuff that I get passionate about. Is it's not, I don't need to be at closing and have a picture standing next to you. I'm not part of that. But send me a picture of you guys going into your new house. 3 years later, I'll get a picture of them buying a car. I never thought I'd own a brand new car. That's the kind of stuff that I like.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I know what it's like. I mean, end of 2016, I went through burnout. And the reason I went through burnout is because I felt, well, I was that transactional agent that didn't have the relationships, right? So every day felt like a grind, and it just sucked, right? I mean, the conversations are different. You know, when I come into somebody's world, let's say an expired listing or a canceled listing, and I go into it not trying to sell myself, but just really try to help them figure out the problem of why their home didn't sell, and be able to guide them in a more relationship type way, I guess, if that makes sense. It's just a lot different way of doing business, and it just doesn't eat at you every day. I mean, it's fulfilling, right?
And I'm sure in the years of experience that you got, I'm sure you and Ashton both have a list of agents that you've done business with that you enjoy doing business with, and the other side of that list. And the more that you
are you talking about the blacklist? You're talking about the blacklist.
Yeah, I mean, but my industry has a very long list of ethical, like, there's people that are in prison because of their decisions and how they're helping people with their finances. And the more that we can help people understand the process and how to build a solid foundation for their real estate business, the better the entire industry is going to look.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's all about.
Yep. It's just improving, you know, a little bit at a time, helping everybody, you know, and so this is why we just pass on the knowledge. Yeah. So, Deryk, I really appreciate you coming in today, man. I'll definitely, if you're watching this, definitely all your information will be down in the show notes. So contact information, reach out to Deryk if you have any questions for credit repair or anything like that. The dude is amazing. So, you know, without anything else, I think we'll wrap it up for the day.
Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks, man. We'll see you guys.